Guru Nation and Kulkarni Nation, welcome. Listen, we're in the middle of political topics. I I'm not even interested in politics, but I guess everyone is these days, and everyone's an expert, of course. But everyone has an opinion, and I put together that LinkedIn article this weekend did extremely well about RFK and Make America Healthy Again. And I thought I was pretty neutral, and most of the comments said, yeah, you're pretty neutral. But I think it's not easy to hide that I think he's a genuinely decent person. And I knew going into this, he's the most dangerous for our industry and for my own livelihood. And I still am glad he's involved in the administration somehow. Maybe didn't want him, like if I had my pick, because for selfish reasons, I wouldn't want him director of HHS. I think that's too important. I don't necessarily think he's a bad guy, and I think people have been brainwashed into thinking, oh, he doesn't care, he's reckless, when he himself has said vaccines aren't going anywhere. Like he's said this. He just wants additional data, additional safety data, long-term data. And my site's never done vaccine trials. Like I think I've done two in my 20-year career, two or three. I've always warned sites, hey, don't put all your eggs in vaccine trials. Pandemics come and go, platforms come and go. has a lot of potential. I said this throughout the pandemic. But I got a hot take on RFK and why I think overall, MAGA won. I have a hot take on this.
Go
And
ahead.
well, do you want to just say something first? Do you want to get right into the hot take?
Well, I figured you do your hot take, then I'd comment on a bunch of things. I already have four comments.
Okay, so there's this gap between intellectual elites,
Hmm.
which are, let's face it, they are in our industry. They're
Hmm.
they're calling the shots,
Hmm.
right? Or at least they used to. And I think
Hmm.
they're being threatened now. But let's look at the results, all right? Let's look at subjectively and objectively. So objectively, and I've referenced this in my article, the heat map with the vaccines, you know, eradicated disease. There's no denying it, they're good, right? They eradicated diseases. I think RFK would also say the same thing. I think he has said the same thing. It doesn't mean, and he even said, it doesn't mean they are always safe for everyone. He said there's no drug that is safe for everyone. So he's more against the mandates than he is against the actual vaccine topic. But anyways, the bigger point of why MAGA won, there's this intellectual rift between everyday Americans that go to work, that pick up their kids from soccer, that clock in, right? And the intellectuals. And there's a reason why Pharma, way before Trump was even thinking about politics, was the most hated industry in this country. By far. It's not even close. By far. So the reason these guys won is because people are fed up with being talked down to or talked about. And it's the same reason why we talk about patient centricity in this industry. Let's make things pro patients. Let's make everything patient centric. Well, who are these patients? These patients are Trump supporters, RFK. They're not all Kamala supporters. Matter of fact, the majority are not. So how are you intellectuals gonna make the industry more patient-centric when you are mocking the very representatives that these same patients you want to care for have elected, and now you're calling them Nazis and other things. That's my hot take on this, is they can't say we're about patients, let's make things more patient-centric, and then say, well, the people that those patients voted for are evil, they're crackpots, they're Nazis, they're fascists. Those two things are not congruent. And I think that's why that side won, is they're tired of the way things have been, and not just healthcare, but everything. And they wanted regime changes. And when you do something radical like this, you're gonna get radical outcomes. Right? Now, I don't think they're going to be that radical in our industry. I don't think you can just get rid of the paradigm of doing clinical trials. If anything, I think, and I argued in my article, there's going to be more clinical trials. being done. There's going to be more M&As. There's going to be more innovation at the smaller cap biotechs. There's going to be a need for the big pharma to acquire more biotechs to fill their pipelines. That patent cliff is going to happen 26 regardless of who won this election, right? But now it's slightly lower regulatory burden, maybe, and a better environment for stocks. You're going to see more IPOs and you're going to see more M&A. So I think you're going to get more research being done. And if RFK wants more safe long-term safety studies on vaccines, you're going to need different type of sites to do some of these trials because the sites that specialize in vaccines, they're good for those quick, like a week to enroll, let's get 100 people, boom. Well, now you need to retain them too, right? You need more than just 1 or 2 visits. You need monthly visits maybe for a year. That's his goal from what he said. So that's my take on why they won. That's my take on why I think it's hypocritical for many in our industry to make fun of the other side when they're also talking about being patient-centric and listening to the patient. Well, if you're really going to listen to the patient, you're going to hear shit you don't want to hear. That's my hot take.
Oh, you heard it first here. Dan Safara is all for patients. I think that's a good thing.
I just lost
Um,
5,000 subscribers.
so I only have 14 responses to what you've got written, what you said so far. So let's see if I can outline them, and I'm sure I'll land up
Well,
bundling a
respond to
few.
the macro one first. If they're going to
The
be patient-centric,
Yeah.
it means listening to people that differ from you. If you're truly going to be patient-centric, you need to actually listen and implement what the patients want,
Okay. So
which
I'll
is
respond to
this
that
because
one first.
they wanted this and they got it by voting.
So I'll respond to it in two ways, well, three ways actually. So first of all, I think you are positioning the Donald Trump victory, and let's be clear, it was a victory.
Mhm.
You're positioning the Donald Trump victory as someone saying, I agree with Donald Trump. The question is, was it actually a Donald Trump victory as much as a Kamala loss? So people may have said, I don't like Kamala for whatever reason. I don't have to actually agree with Donald. I think most people agree that they didn't like either candidate in a standalone universe. So what was the version they could tolerate more? That became one piece. So it's not like he got 80% of the vote. He got 42, 43%. I think that's what it was.
Of the
I'm
popular
sorry, not
vote?
50. I mean 52,
Yeah,
53%.
yeah,
But so it wasn't like this. I mean, it's decisive, but it's not like a complete landslide. So I think
right.
that's one piece. Now so let's keep that piece aside for a second. The next piece, you can't disagree with. So you're right. Patients should be listened to, but it also means you're allowed to have your own opinion because you are also a patient. You can decide whether at a professional disease level, what patients want and what patients need is an absolute thing to agree to. And the idea that you can go, you know what? Patients are saying they want to have one drug once a day for the rest of their lives, compared to what the Japanese method would be. I want very few side effects. I want one pill 3 times a day and fewer side effects. Um, that's listening to patients. But you don't have to necessarily agree with their political views to actually have that opinion. It just means you have to listen to them and understand, for example, do I want a better quality of life or do I want a longer life, which is a choice people have to keep making in the context of cancer.
Right.
So I think the dichotomy you created, which is now that Trump has won, you have to agree with Trump supporters. I'm not sure that's necessarily where we land up.
You have to
But
be
then there's a
welcoming of their opinion.
but what opinions? Are we talking political opinions or are we talking about healthcare opinions?
The overall opinion, well, as it relates to healthcare, that we need more transparency
But
from
I don't think
the
anyone's really
insiders.
arguing that we need more transparency, right? Is anyone really saying give us less transparency?
The people that have to give it, yeah.
I don't know if anyone is. No, I don't think that's
Have
true.
you seen the fines from clinicaltrials.gov that when they
I
don't
have.
post results? I mean,
I have.
that's part of
Um,
it. That's like the lowest hanging fruit.
but no one's saying that we shouldn't have more transparency in clinicaltrials.gov. I think people are saying, are
No
you
one's
seeing the value?
explicitly saying it, but they're saying
But
it
then
through
how do
their
you know it's,
actions.
are they though? How so?
So when it comes to where the funding goes and for example government grants going to the NIH, right?
But hold
And
on, that's a different topic from where you were.
But that's part of it. That's transparency. Like
You
that's taxpayer money going to fund research, and we need to see what the outcomes actually are. Like, where is the money actually being spent?
so
Is
you're not talking clinicaltrials.gov anymore. You're talking transparency of funding.
right.
Okay.
Transparency of everything. And
No, no, I get
clinicaltrials.gov is
that.
one example.
No, no. So let's address each issue at a time.
Yeah.
So no one's really arguing clinicaltrials.gov is a bad idea. I think everyone agrees that it's a good idea. Here's Sunshine Act. People were like, "Oh, this is a great idea." The Sunshine Act costs, at least according to a GAO report that came out pretty early on, they said it costs about $1 billion in costs. Would you say that you've used the Sunshine Act in any serious way and it's helped drop drug costs or helped drop any
No.
kind of healthcare?
And the data is awful because
Right.
it shows all the money a site gets as going to a PI, which is never the case.
Right. So, my point being, transparency for transparency's sake doesn't make any sense. There has to be context, there has to be purpose. And remember that each transparency requirement that you impose, which is not a bad thing, comes at a cost that the consumer will bear in the end, anyways. So, decide what transparency you want because you will get it, and then you have to decide whether it makes sense. So, that would be my second thing. Now you're talking about funding, and you're talking about is the funding, should we be transparent with funding? Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% in favor of transparency of funding. Question is, what do you do with that? I think we have this big overwhelming need of saying, oh, we want transparency, and I overall could agree
Here,
with
and
that.
this is why these guys are in charge right now.
Okay.
Their RFK said, I will personally take it upon myself to see what we're doing with this funding. And
Yeah, but what
you
makes him
hope,
qualified to do that?
well, what made the last one qualified? It's
He was
there
a
were
doctor.
no, the last person at HHS was just an administrator, I think.
I'd have to look it up. Because I mean, we had Sibelius, we had I don't really
And that's another
remember their
issue.
qualifications.
If you I talk to doctors a lot, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
big complaint from them, especially ones that work for large health systems, is
Sure.
for every doctor that works for this whatever
hmm
institution, we
hmm
have 10 administrators making
Sure.
decisions.
I think Musk put that out there.
Musk put
So
that out there the other day. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
responded to that. Here's my thing. I actually conceptually think it's great to point to administrators and go, "Oh, they're terrible. We should get rid of them." Here's what I believe in a capitalistic society. In a capitalistic society, if we can eliminate something, we will, because I don't want that cost. Which means that those administrators are doing something that's adding value to that company. The moment you go in there and you say, "I want that cost eliminated," you're removing certain value from that
Right.
company.
Right. But
So,
they're adding value to the corporation, not to the patient. And that's
but
where
I
the
assume,
revolution, that's where the revolt
oh,
came from.
hold on. Let's again. You keep assuming that what we're seeing is people signing on to Trump. Well, I'm assuming that they signed on to not Kamala. So they aren't necessarily going, I want to be part of the revolution.
So what did
They're,
Kamala stand for then? Less transparency and more
no.
pure.
I think Kamala stood for 15 other different things altogether. She had nothing. I don't actually know her
Well, the
political.
real problem was she stood for nothing.
Right.
That was the real issue.
I think
But
that's one of the things people are argued over, right? So
yeah.
it may be that they didn't say, "Oh, I want more transparency." They just said, "I want to have." I want. Here's really what I think people came out saying: "Look, the cost of bread right now is too high, and you, Biden, were in charge. I don't care whether there's a good reason for it. You were in charge, and the cost of bread is too high. I'm holding you responsible for it. Kamala,
Right.
you are a stand-in for that for Biden, and therefore we're going to hold you responsible for it.
Right.
For you to
I
come
guess
out with no,
overall, the macro
yeah,
argument was we don't want 4 more years of this. Well, it can't
exactly,
get any worse, so let's completely change it up.
right, right. But that
Fair
doesn't mean
enough.
that I want a revolution. It just means I don't want more of this.
Well, completely changing it up is making a U-turn from
No.
current
Completely change it.
policy.
It's a circle, right? You're going in this direction. Completely changing it up could mean this, or it could mean this.
It means
But you're
that
assuming it means this.
pointing
I
down.
I think it just means that I just think it means this.
Well, I think the rhetoric is complete U-turn, and the outcome is debatable as to how far of a degree shift it makes. But I think people
I'm
voted
not a smart
for
enough man
a
to understand.
complete. No,
See,
no, like
that's where I don't
for
agree
those
with you on
listening,
that
though,
particular.
Sean's pointing down like
Yeah,
180 degree. I think that's
yeah.
the rhetoric from the other side. We're going to change everything up, and
That's what
in
Trump is saying.
actual
That's the Republicans. Yeah,
and in
absolutely. Yeah, that's what they're saying.
actuality, the degrees will change I don't think they'll
Sure.
go that far, right? They'll go a few
Right. Right.
degrees because
Right.
government's hard to change. Like we have checks and
Correct.
balances, and there's a
Correct.
lot. It's not that easy to just make radical change, but
Exactly.
people understand this, and they're like, yeah, it's not working. Let's just completely blow it up and fix it.
But I think that they were miss. If I was that voter, I might argue that I was really thinking about economics when I said that. I didn't care about
Sure,
transparency at all. That was not on my list of things I gave a crap. I just cared about the cost of goods in my house right now.
sure. That's the lowest hanging fruit, and that's the
Correct.
part that's affecting most Americans.
Exactly right. And that's my point. So my point is you can't come to this election and say because Trump won, it means everything else is what they signed up for, what they asked for. It means they signed up for all of it, but they didn't ask for all of it. So I
Right.
think that's the key piece. Then I want to go back and so did I answer your question about what's my hot take on that part? What's my response to your hot take?
I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, fair
Then let's
enough.
address some of the other elements. You said RFK, for example. He's a bad guy. I don't think anyone outside here
Have you
I
seen the LinkedIn posts?
I don't see the LinkedIn post enough to
I
give a crap
mean,
about them.
they're
Here's
not giving
I
him a
grew
fair shake.
I think here's where I come at him. I grew up at the time. I voted for Bill Clinton. Did I vote for Bill Clinton? I can't even freaking remember. Maybe I didn't vote for Bill Clinton. I was too young for that. I wasn't even a citizen yet. Um, but pretty early, I was like, oh, you know what? Al Gore got a rough shake, and I remember being terrified of George W. Bush. And I remember seeing everyone going, you know what? George W. Bush is against this country. He's against immigration. He's against immigrants. And I remember going like actually being terrified.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize that every 4 years, they took John McCain, who was a freaking war hero, and said that he's going to destroy your life. So
Yeah.
to me, I don't believe political rhetoric in the same way anymore because you've just cried wolf too often, too long. And to me, that's why I just even RFK, I may not agree with a lot of his positions, and Trump, I may not agree with a lot of his positions, but the fact is that I think people are really truly going, I want to help this country, and I think I have a better way. I
Yeah.
may not agree with every single way
I
that
don't
you have.
agree with a lot of their stuff. I voted
Yeah.
for women's rights. I voted for, and I don't think Trump's against that either. That's another misconception. And I voted very lenient on immigration laws. So, which is not a MAGA stance. Neither
Sure.
of those two things are like traditionally MAGA stance.
My point
So,
being, I don't think anyone's a bad guy. And I recognize some people are going to go, well, he's a Nazi. And I go, you know what? Calm down with the Nazi
but you're
language.
a moderate. You and I are moderates.
I'm
We
very much
understand
moderate.
that. Me too. There are
Um,
people on the both sides of the camp that think the other side's completely evil.
Agreed. And I think that's ridiculous.
I do too.
Um, but I think I'm old and no one gives a crap what I think anymore, which is why I can
Well,
have an
there's some
opinion.
old people in that that are still thinking that way.
Sure.
You and I are
Then
moderates. We
we
can
are.
switch either way. Actually, this is the first time I've ever voted Republican in my life, right?
Oh,
I've
there you
always
go.
been for presidential candidate, I've always been independent, Green Party, libertarian.
I'm not sure to waste my vote on that one though. I'd like
Eh,
to have them be feasible at some point, but yeah.
I was fed up with the two-party system, and I still am, but I think the parties have completely changed.
Yeah, that's probably true. Then you actually had this comment on vaccines are not going anywhere, and RFK came out and said
His
that. And I
own
go,
words, his own words.
yeah, here's the problem. That's not how vaccines work. Vaccines work with herd immunity. If you can get someone high enough up there to go, you know what? I don't trust vaccines. You're now going to compromise herd immunity and
Mhm.
therefore make vaccines less effective. And if you make vaccines less effective, you go, see, I told you the vaccines were not effective, and then
Right.
reduce the immunity even more. And then go, see, they weren't working.
Do
And
you
then the
think they
vaccines eventually
should?
go.
So they're not forced right now on anyone. During
Sure.
COVID, some states mandated it, some
Yeah.
employers mandated.
Yeah.
They've never been forced like in China, right?
Sure.
Do you think it would be better off for the collective if they were mandated?
I think
Or do
that's
you
what
think
public
the
health is all
consumers
about,
should
right?
get a choice?
I think consumers should have informed consent always, and I think that's what RFK is saying. The only problem is, I think with someone like RFK, my concern is that the informed consent will tilt in a specific way because the truth is, right now, I've dispensed vaccines, and I can tell you, I already give you an informed consent form, and I already
Yeah,
give you information to decide whether it is consistent. So, what are you changing? The only thing you could be changing is to make it more anti-vaccine
right,
which
right.
means that you're really trying to dissuade people from using vaccines, not that you're saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, give vaccines a fair shot."
Yeah, I mean,
So that's my
we
concern.
have my wife's pregnant. We're getting
Yeah,
RSV vaccine next
right,
2 weeks,
right.
while she's pregnant,
Now,
because that's what you're supposed to do. The data shows that that works. Is it risk free? No, nothing's risk free.
right. So you
Are
take
there
the
vaccine
risks.
injuries? There are vaccine injuries.
Actually, I did a whole podcast with some guy who's a lawyer, and all he does is vaccine injuries. You might, your listeners may want to go in, or my listeners may want to go in and listen to that podcast because it was like a long conversation about what happens to people with vaccine injuries. Because there was this idea that you won't get compensated. No, there's actually a system out there that even if your injury is caused by vaccines, and it's really kind of hard to prove, the system will pay you out. I would argue that it needs to be a little bit more stringent than what it is, but
But
that system exists.
if your child gets seizures, right,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you would have rather not got that vaccine. Now, even if it only happens to, like, I don't know what the data is, but minuscule number, it's not
Sure. Let's say
minuscule when it happens to you.
absolutely. But now let me ask you this question. Let's say it's smallpox. If you had to choose between 1 in a million, and we don't know which one gets a seizure, or 50 get smallpox, 500 get smallpox, 5,000 get smallpox. Yeah, I'm gonna go, you know what? I don't know who that one is, but that's a chance I'm willing to take as a community.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not anti-vax.
No, I know you're not. I know you're
I
not. But
think
I'm
I
saying this is
think
for those people.
I think what the industry should strive for, and it's been headed this way, is personalized medicine, really understanding all the factors that go into
Yeah.
what makes certain people more predisposed to certain
And
uh
that's fair research to ask, right? That's absolutely fair, but that's
and I
not
don't
what's
think
being
he's
proposed right
against,
now.
but he's not
No,
against that.
no, but he's saying let's taint the water right now so
Yeah.
that people are less likely. And that's what concerns me.
Well, he's not tainting the water. What he's saying is you shouldn't trust everything you hear from the establishment.
But what makes him qualified to make that decision or determination or even
I
have an
think he
argument
spent his
about it?
entire career like going after big corporations that have certain things under the rugs in order
And
to
that
profit.
still doesn't qualify you. For example, you take a
Well,
med mal attorney.
He's seen a lot.
I respect that, but here's the thing: you take a med mal attorney. I think RFK essentially was a med mal attorney, from what I can
Yeah, yeah.
gather as best as I can.
Have you read his
There's a
book,
reason.
The Real
No,
Anthony Fauci? I
no, I have
recommend you
not.
read it, man. It's a total hit piece
Sure.
on Fauci, but doesn't mean that everything in there is like
Oh no,
wrong.
no, no. And again, this is not me taking a pot shot at anyone, including RFK, because I feel like again, he's doing what he thinks is right. My concern is not what he's like. He's not coming at it from a I think the world needs to burn. I think he's just not well enough informed. And my point would be, a attorney who does med mal still uses, and you know this, they still use medical experts to prove something, to review the data, to tell you what that data means, because you don't understand it. Just because I did 1,000 med mal cases doesn't make me more qualified. There's
Right.
a reason the
But
physicians
but
are involved. Yeah.
but you know the process though. You know the regulatory process. You know where corners can be cut, where things can be hidden. You do
No, first
know
of all,
you
med mal
have
attorneys don't know that. Med mal attorneys don't know the regulatory process. Med mal attorneys have a very general sense of what the med mal. Because I don't work with med mal
well,
attorneys, but I work with attorneys all the
if
time.
they read enough cases, right? Don't they study like
No,
details?
no,
No?
that's
Okay.
not the space they get into.
Okay.
Generally speaking, that's not what they get into. Because that's my job as a regulatory attorney to know what that space is.
Yeah. I mean, fair
Um,
enough. I don't think I would argue he's
sure,
necessarily qualified, but many of the appointees haven't been qualified either.
and that's exactly the point. I have no issue with.
And they don't get criticized because they're okay, they're
No,
on the side basically.
I'm going to critique someone who's qualified. I'm going to critique Vivek on top of this.
Wow,
He's
Vivek.
Indian. I really want to. Yeah,
My
my
boy, I
issue with.
tried to get him on the pod, man, when he was doing
Good for
everyone's
you.
pod. Yeah,
Good for
but
him.
it never worked out. I'll try again.
Um, yeah, absolutely. Vivek, again, he's a guy from the biotech world, from the biopharma world. Like he should know better because he's been in the space, and he came out and said that, oh, we don't need two double-blinded placebo-controlled multinational studies to prove something. No, you absolutely
Is
should.
he talking about a phase 2 and then a phase 3?
So essentially to have appropriate to have substantial evidence to be able to make a claim, the FDA requires that you have outside like rare disease state drugs, the FDA says you need two double-blinded placebo-controlled studies.
So that's
Uh,
typically a phase 2 and a phase 3,
it
right?
typically is a
Yeah.
phase three, really, not even a phase two, because you want them to be
Or you
appropriately
can't get
powered and all
two.
that
Oh,
good
so
stuff.
they want two phase 3. So they actually
Correct,
want more
generally
than
speaking.
two
Yeah,
because you
right.
got to do a phase 2.
Correct, correct, correct. So the point being, his position is you don't need that. And I go, do you understand how statistics work? Like you should understand. You are the CEO of a company that did this type of work.
Right.
There's a reason that exists. No one's going in there going, oh, let me waste money. They're going in there because there you can get a bad result. Statistically, you can get a bad result. That's why you do another one to
Right.
go, I'm to reduce the likelihood that the statistics are tainted. Come out and say, oh, we don't need that because it's
But I don't
wasteful.
think they're critical of private industry. They're on the side of private industry can do whatever they want, the most efficient
And
use of
that's
the
the point.
capital. What they're
But that's the point.
criticizing are the public
No,
funds.
no, no, no. This would be at the private industry level. This would be what the FDA would be requiring from industry to do.
Yeah, I
Correct.
don't think they're
If you
touching that, man. Knowing
they
their
already
backgrounds and their
Vivek
rhetoric.
already said that. Vivek already said that.
Hmm.
That's my concern.
I gotta look into this then.
Yeah.
We gotta do the next article on Vivek in that case. What is his
Exactly.
role gonna be?
Well, he's part of Doge, isn't he? Department of Government
Government
Efficiency.
efficiency?
Yeah. And that's what concerns me. So if I'm wrong, someone call me out, tell me I'm wrong. But I read this and I was like, you know what? That's concerning.
Yeah.
Um, then you talked about vaccine trials, and we talked about M&A, and you're going, oh, M&A will still continue to increase. Here's the funny part. I don't know if you know that. I
And
know you know this actually.
IPOs too.
Yeah. So let's first talk about smaller clinical trial sites. I'm helping smaller clinical trial sites. A lot of them are vaccine heavy, as you know. And the big interesting piece is going to be vaccines are already drying up. The position they're taking right now will land up drying it out even faster, even
Oh
further.
yeah. I've talked to a really big pharma. I've been talking to this pharma 16 months.
Yeah.
We've never done vaccine trials in Yuma. And
Hmm.
I was like, you know what? With you guys, I'd be open to it. So let's keep us on the radar. And
Sure.
2 weeks ago, they reached out and said, hey, we're not doing vaccine. We're everything's on pause for vaccine
Exactly.
because we're waiting on more
Yeah.
clarity. But we are
But
doing
we have the
other
clarity.
disease states. Here's the other
Sure.
disease states we have. And so that's
Sure.
not stopping. Actually that's increasing. That
You mean the
activity is
other disease
increasing.
states? Absolutely. But I think that's exactly the point, right? Because industry follows the path of least resistance. You
Right.
go, oh, fewer studies will bring your product to market quicker. Some people might die, but that's okay. And
It
this is where
wouldn't
my concern is.
it wouldn't
You,
make sense though for them to limit private industries like the FDA's mandates of 2 trials, right? It
yes,
wouldn't make
but
sense.
it does, and I'll tell you why it does. Because their position is it's inefficient to require two trials, and I'm going, no, it's not. It's very much
But that's
necessary.
government efficiency.
No, 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 no.
That's
So they're saying
Department of
government standing the
Government
way.
efficiency.
They're saying the government is causing too
I
much
see.
bureaucracy.
I see. I mean, if that's the case, okay, I don't think this happens, but, and I got
Sure.
to read into it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
We got to write an article on this soon. I mean, in theory, wouldn't that make more trials? Like, okay, we'll only do one phase 3, but now
Yeah.
instead of doing one for like doing two for this same indication, we can do one for this indication, one for this indication.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a completely it'll be dose independent, right? So it'll be dose dependent. So depending on what you're treating, you'll get a slightly different dose. In fact, companies will say, and because you'll get a completely different side effect profile. A good combination of that is like dopamine and dobutamine. Depending on what you're treating, you'll get totally different. Or you take Megace, for example.
Hmm.
Megace is 20 milligrams if you're trying to like address GI indigestion. You want to use it for appetite increasing, it's 800 milligrams. So the moment you're talking about that, it's a completely different disease state, different disease profile. So it's not like you're going to do just an add-on study. You're just going to go, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to come to market quicker. And
Of course, yeah.
that's what PE companies want. That's what VC companies want.
That's what
And I
the
think that's the
biotechs
concern.
want. Now
Exactly
the
right. But at what
consumers,
cost?
at what cost? Maybe vaccine injuries are just the tip of the iceberg if this comes.
Exactly. Exactly.
But we
So
won't
you're
know
going
for
after
what?
vaccine injuries
Five
when
years,
you have this
10
bigger.
years, 15 years.
Yeah. And that's my concern.
Well, then why did Pharma lobby so hard against this against this party if this is going to help them make more profits ultimately?
Well, first of all, I don't think this existed until like this week because Vivek came out
Yeah,
and
because this wasn't the policy beforehand,
no,
right?
no,
Yeah.
no, no, it wasn't part of something they advertised. Because if I was Pfizer today and I heard this, I'd be like, someone freaking get Vivek on there because I'm all for
Give
that.
a Vic on our board.
Exactly. Well,
Then you
we'll have
get
that
then you
different.
get the fascism argument actually starting to make
I,
some sense.
I stay away from fascism arguments and all that good stuff. So
Oh, they're throwing it around like loosely. Like
yeah, I don't get into that for now at least.
why?
Um, my position is people throw the word fascist around. You don't actually understand what fascists were. You don't
Hmm.
know what people actually went through. To argue that we're sitting in a really, really privileged position in the US
Right.
and comparing it to Nazi Germany, like, do you have any concept of what that life was like?
Right.
I don't. And I can go, I'm older than most of these 15-year-olds throwing out words like fascist. I've lived in countries where you've got true corruption. I've lived in countries where you have some horrible things happen to you. My point is, you don't know fascism. And don't throw that word around because you don't understand what you're talking about.
So speaking of
I'm,
rhetoric, oh, go ahead. Sure.
but that's not to say that they haven't done horrible things. I'm not taking that piece away. And could things be better? Absolutely. But let's not throw Nazi words around. Even the Germans refuse to acknowledge that. Like that's their history, and they go, "No, that was a horrible period in our country's life."
It's illegal
So
in Germany to make jokes about Hitler or anything.
yeah. The fact that you can say that tells you you're not in Germany. You're not living in a Nazi world.
Right.
So
I
ignoring that
wanted
for a second.
I wanted to shift gears because same
Should
topic.
I? Hmm.
Like we don't the reality is there's a lot of speculation as far as
You,
HHS and
by the way,
trials.
I haven't given you my hot take yet.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Did
Let's
you?
go.
I don't
Let's
know if
go.
you saw this
This is gonna
right
be a
now.
long pod. Let's go.
Like today's news, it might be an hour old as best as I can tell.
I haven't
But
checked the
Trump
news
came out.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, Trump came out and said, I'm going to take those huge endowments that the large universities have, and we're going to create a new university called, I think, American University or University of America or something like that.
Yeah.
It's going to have free education, and federal providers will be required, contractors and the like will be required to recognize that 4-year degree.
Okay.
It's very much something that Trump would do. He's like, it's going to have every conceivable type of course that you want, every
Mm.
conceivable type of information that you want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's very, very techy to think of it. I don't think it's actually what people will respond. But here's my question to our listeners, our followers. Would you in industry respect someone who comes out of YouTube University essentially and now has a clinical trial bachelor's or clinical trial master's. And I'm not sure how, like each degree I teach, and I go each degree I teach at, you create a special
You're
bed,
a prestigious professor. No?
adjunct,
Adju-
adjunct professor. Um,
That's just what
and
you do to remain humble. People don't know Deshaun's a boss.
I'm a college professor. But yeah, so my point is in this world of potentially free education, first of all, would we treat it the same as a degree from Harvard? Or
Yes.
would we treat it? See, I don't see that.
I
I,
know
I
because
don't.
you're a pharmacist and an
Mhm.
attorney. So your
Sure.
degrees have a lot of utility, right? A lot of most of the degrees coming out of these prestigious universities are
Mhm.
there's no utility. The only utility is the network effect. Hey, I went to Harvard. I
Sure.
went to Ivy League.
Sure.
It's easier to get funding, this kind of stuff. Second
Yeah.
order effect.
So do you think you can get would you trust a medical
No,
doctor who
of course
graduated
not.
from YouTube University?
Of course not.
But
Of
that's what
course
he's
not.
offering.
But I would trust if someone got a bachelor's in philosophy from Harvard or a bachelor's from an accredited
Yeah, I don't
YouTube,
give a crap about that. Yeah. Actually, no,
it's
that's not
still
true. I
I'd
do
still
actually give
hire
a
the
crap.
coordinator. I'd probably hire the one from YouTube University more than Harvard. They're gonna need less. They're less in debt, so they're gonna not jump around as quickly to new jobs just to like keep up with their debt.
But here's my question for
You
you.
want
I'm
to
not
talk
sure I agree with
scam?
that.
You want to talk scam? we get into these universities. This was a hot take. All right. The universities and the government subsidized loans to the financial institutions backing, even under
Mhm.
bankruptcy, student loans, you got to pay them back.
Agreed.
Let's keep inflating the costs because, hey, fuck it.
I agree with that
Free
statement.
money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
But they're all
bubble
shutting down.
cannot last. Good.
Well,
That bubble
the,
cannot last. That's a bubble.
so it hasn't been. I think even then, those universities are shutting down significantly. There's a massive. If you look it up, there are a
Good.
massive number of universities shutting. I used to teach at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy. It got bought out for the last 20 years. They've been trying to sell themselves. They finally sold themselves to St. Joe's University.
And those are the
But
STEM stuff. You can still
yeah,
even hold on to some
yeah.
argument.
University of the Arts just shut down right in Philadelphia. That's two universities without even thinking about it.
I mean,
They
it
shut
sounds
down
bad,
abruptly.
but and
It's
I
something
do a
like
lot of career oriented stuff on my channel, so I get a lot of
yeah,
students.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
I can't get a job, but you think I should get a master's?
yeah. I don't think that.
No, fuck
Right.
no. But this is the thing they've been taught, like because it's part
But
of the complex. Feed the
But there's a
complex.
reason you do that. There's a reason you do that, though. You're not doing that because you want the masters. You want to have a way to explain the downtime.
You want to
If I
explain
don't,
the downtime, and you think it's actually going to help you when you finish your master's. Instead,
yeah,
you're going
because
to
it
get
looks
in
better.
debt,
Yeah,
or you're going to get more
agreed.
debt. You're
Yeah,
going to still get the same jobs.
yeah,
And by the way, there's this little thing called AI
right.
that's making huge headways, way more than MAGA and RFK and all this.
Yep.
And you don't elect that. That just comes.
Yeah, we
So
don't have
there's
that
a
choice.
lot of issues with this. This bubble needed to have popped decades, a decade ago at least.
But I don't know if the bubble will pop because I'll tell you this. I think there are, those online universities
Yeah,
that where you never meet the teacher, you never have a chance to talk to the teacher. These are just sort of paper mills, for lack of a better term.
yeah.
Um, the
Trump had
truth
one.
is, yeah,
Trump
yeah.
had Trump University.
But I don't know details about Trump University, so I'm not commenting on
Yeah,
that
it was
part
like a
of it.
sales oriented thing.
Sure, but the point I'm making though is I would let's assume he had a really good Trump University was really great. The truth is I would still trust a Harvard over these guys for two reasons. Number one, Harvard has a filtration process. So if everyone can get something, it gets devalued.
Hmm.
If you have to cross certain barriers to get in, I believe that you can actually do it. Then the fact is that if you actually have to have the discipline to go from year one to year two to year three to year four and be able to fail out,
Fair enough.
that to me is important. It shows a certain stick to itiveness that I think is necessary when I'm
Fair
hiring
enough.
someone.
I just don't think they should cost what they do, and I think
Oh,
the
that I
only
agree
reason
with.
it's that expensive is it's free money for the universities.
I think I don't know that it's free money as much as I think two things are happening.
They have guaranteed payments.
No,
It's
I know
either from
that.
the student or the government, so it's free
Sure.
money.
But I don't define that as free money. It's guaranteed money, which I think is a different thing. But I think your point is well made in that it's money that's coming in. My concern is that because of the way universities were structured, um, they were in a position that they literally couldn't sustain themselves. They are. I think last I checked, something like 40 to 60% of universities will shut down in the next 10 years. So if that's true, it's not like these guys were like rolling
Oh,
in
if you
money.
take government subsidies away?
No, no, no. This is right now.
Oh, this
This
is
is
even with government
yeah, yeah,
subsidies.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Then that should tell you the efficiency there is laughable, and these
Oh
endowments,
yeah.
like the private schools, you I don't know how you'd regulate that, but the public ones, gotta figure out something. Those are state taxpayer money.
I'm trying to look it up. How many universities are shutting down?
It's awful, man.
Okay, so here we go. Okay. In 2023 to 2024, that's it, right? Roughly 40 unique institutions, excluding branches, actually shut down. That's obscene.
Yeah,
At least 20 colleges shut down in 2024 and more set to shut down over the current year. In 2024, wires in the last decade, 500 colleges shut down. So it's happening.
yeah.
Um, so anyways, that's the general
And
point I
that
was
and
making.
AI is another force there. I think it's stronger than
Yeah.
the political force.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
the value of these degrees, the efficiency, you want to talk efficiency, these AIs, these systems are effectively replacing graduates. And graduates are coming out at a time where all-time high student
That
debt.
concerns me though. My concern is again I teach, right? And I also use AI extensively. Here's what I know about AI. AI gives you just enough information to make you believe that you understand something,
For
but
now,
not enough
yeah,
to make
for
sure.
now.
But the question is if it can it actually tell me more and get me to a place where I can understand when the AI is wrong or it's not giving me the answer I wanted? And that's the hard part. One of the things I have to teach my students over and over and over again is here's a question, here's the answer. When is your answer not actually answering the question? You'd be surprised how difficult that actually is.
Mm,
And until you go through the process of responding over and over and over again, that iterative process of someone telling you you're wrong,
mhm.
you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but
I
yeah,
agree
so
with you.
yeah,
The other topic I wanted to discuss is FTC. And, I mean,
yeah,
this is your specialty, right? Or another one of your pharma advertising on TV.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let me give you the argument from the other side. I'm not a MAGA
Sure,
apologist, by the
sure,
way,
sure, sure.
but the argument is the reason why mainstream media was so biased, and
Hmm.
it's objectively so. You could look at data and see positive mentions of Kamala versus positive of Trump. It's objectively biased in one direction.
I have a question for you, Dan. Are we
Yeah.
actually have how long have we been doing this? Because my client call just jumped on.
Oh, shoot. Well, that's a
Yeah.
cliffhanger then for because that's an hour-long thing.
Yeah, easy.
Okay,
That's
we do
tomorrow,
that one.
maybe the day after.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
What'd you think?
Thought it was good, man. I mean, probably lost some subs, but probably gained some as well. So it's a wash. Hopefully not. I mean, these are just ideas. You need to have ideas, then be able to push back. And I'm willing to change my mind, but I do think there's an excessive amount of corruption at the. I've said this since I started my YouTube channel, man. Big Pharma, why are they the biggest lobbyists of all?
Well, we'll talk about that next time. I gotta jump because I'm literally
Okay, man.
4 minutes late for my call. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Like, subscribe,
Bye.
comment, share.
Send
Follow
send
Darshan.
send me the link as well.
I'll send you this. Bye bye.
Bye.